In this video, I'm going to be talking about the 2000 Al Qaeda summit meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and the importance of this meeting regarding the Central Intelligence Agency who were collecting data and human intelligence on certain Al Qaeda subjects and withholding that information to the State Department and the FBI, which could have, if shared, prevented the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. In 1996, the NSA had begun monitoring the phone calls of a number in a house in Saan'a Yemen called the Yemen Hub, owned by Ahmed al-Hada. Now, I have already done a whole video based on the Ahmed al-Hada home, and you can view that at your leisure to understand more about it. One day in 1999, during the winter months of 1999, the NSA had picked up a phone call where there was a receiving call to the house in which this voice, who went by the name Khallad, had told an al-Mihdhar to come to a meeting in Malaysia. The NSA, who didn't have any photographs of these names in which they became aware from their intelligence, their investigation in the Ahmed al-Hada home, they forwarded this information to the CIA and the FBI in hopes of receiving human intelligence regarding the names involved in their investigation. Now, the Central Intelligence Agency was the lead agency in the investigation into Ahmed al-Hada. The NSA had begun their own investigation, which was a signals intelligence operation involving al-Qaeda, which led him to the Yemen Hub. The CIA began monitoring the movements of Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and Salim al-Hazmi, the brother of Nawaf al-Hazmi. And they found out that the meeting, which took place in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, was to be held at a condominium which was rented by Yazid Sufat, a local Jemaah Islamiyah member, which is a terrorist group in Indonesia, and who provided accommodations at Hambali's request. Hambali is the nom de guerre of Ridduan Isamuddin. This high-level meeting was to involve a number of high-ranking operatives from two terrorist groups, al-Qaeda and Jemaah Islamiyah. Members such as Ramzi bin al-Shibh, Nawaf al-Hazmi, Salim al-Hazmi, Khalid al-Mihdhar, Tawfiq Bin Attash, who went by the nickname Khallad, Hambali, which was the nickname of Ridduan Isamuddin, and Fauzi Hasbi, a member of Jamaat Islamiyah. And later on, it is also suspected that Fahad al-Kuso, who was part of the 1998 embassy bombings, and as well as Khalid Sheikh Muhammad, the man who was behind the alleged mastermind of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, which was given a code name, the Plains Operation. This high-ranking meeting, although it has not been said by any intelligence, which was, by the way, Malaysian authorities were involved in taking photographs at the CIA's request, at the behest of the Malaysian authorities, who rented a hotel room across the street for 3 days regarding the meeting. Now, what was said in the meeting, it is not definitively known because it is alleged by the CIA that neither Malaysia authorities or the CIA didn't have a bug inside the condominium. So it is only alleged as what it was said. Now, with these many high ranking members of these two known terrorist organizations, um, that they were probably talking about terrorist operations. Now, later on, just 2 years later, when they captured Khalid Sheikh Muhammad, Ridduan Isamuddin, and Ramzi bin al-Shibh, take this with a grain of salt because they confessed through torture that, yes, they were talking about terrorist operations in this meeting. What else would they be talking about? These are criminal, Arab criminals. Uh, they weren't innocent by any means, even though that, yes, they were confessed to many of these operations through torture, which can't be used in a court of law, but these people were known to do terrorist bombings in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Afghanistan, in Qatar. So, yes, these are not innocent individuals by any means. Um, Now, the Malaysian authorities took pictures of Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and Tawfiq Bin Attash, and they sent this information to Alex Station, which is the code name for Bin Laden Issue Station, which is a virtual station meant to monitor the movements and financial transactions of members of Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. In 1996 to 1999, the deputy chief of Alex Station was Michael Scheuer, and from 1999 to 2001, it was Richard Blee. And so this information by the Malaysian authorities was sent to Alex Station, and it was received by Deputy Director of Alex Station, Tom Wilshire, in which they never shared this information to the NSA, and it was the NSA who told the CIA about the summit meeting in hopes of getting those photographs to link it with the names that they received through the phone calls made at the Ahmed al-Hada home. The CIA also didn't share this information with the FBI or the State Department. They shared it with Ali Soufan, who is the FBI counterintelligence out of New York, just hours after the attacks. In fact, Ali Soufan was in Yemen trying to get more data involving the USS Cole bombing, and it was there he was met by a CIA case officer in which he showed him photographs of Tawfiq Bin Attash, Khallad, and Khalid al-Mihdhar, in which Ali Soufan looked at these photographs and he was told about who these men were, and he went and threw up in the bathroom. He was so sick with himself that the CIA, who had this information for 16 months and never shared this with the FBI or the State Department or the NSA for that matter. Meanwhile, the NSA, who were monitoring the Bin Laden satellite phone from 1992 to 1998 and the Ahmed al-Hada home from 1996 to 2001, had so much metadata, text messages, emails, phone calls from the Ahmed al-Hada home, that when the director of the NSA, Michael Hayden, testified before the Joint House Inquiry and the 9/11 Commission, his excuse was, we couldn't do anything with the data because it was so much data that we couldn't transcribe it. That's not the excuse that was given by Thomas Drake, a former senior executive of the NSA, or William Binney, the legendary crypto analyst of the NSA, in which both of them have said later on through many interviews following the many years after 9/11, that the data that they received from the Ahmed al-Hada home, in which they linked it to 19 hijackers that were involved, that they had so much metadata on the 19 hijackers that if they shared that data, they could have stopped the 9/11 attacks completely. Sounds familiar? Well, immediately after the meeting, Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi went to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, rented a hotel there. Well, the CIA, who were monitoring the movements of both of these men, went from the meeting in Malaysia to the hotel room in United Arab Emirates, in which, when they broke in, when the two men left the room, they took photographs of Khalid al-Mihdhar's passport. That passport photo went to Alex Station. That information was never shared, not with just the FBI, but it wasn't shared with the State Department either. And then when that cable came in from the case officers in Dubai, it was read by Doug Miller, who was an FBI case officer working at Alex Station. There were 4 FBI agents at Alex Station: Mark Rossini, Doug Miller, Margaret Gillespie, and Ed Getz. Doug Miller reads that cable and sees that Khalid al-Mihdhar had a dual entry visa into the United States, and he's coming to the United States. Both Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Doug Miller realizes that 2 dangerous al-Qaeda operatives who had an alleged involvement with the USS Cole attacks and even the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombings, and tried to draft a cable of his own to warn FBI headquarters in the United States about the men entering the United States. That cable was then sent to be forwarded to Tom Wilshire, who's the deputy director of Alex Station, and Michelle Ann Casey, who's the head ticket of the Yemen hub, in charge of the investigation into the Yemen hub. She takes the cable to Tom Wilshire. Tom Wilshire tells her to please hold off sending. And then when Mark Rossini voiced his concerns about why this cable was not being sent to FBI headquarters, she tells Mark Rossini that this is not an FBI matter, because they believed that an operation was happening abroad in Southeast Asia. Now, how did she come to that conclusion? Well, according to the testimonies of Khalid Sheikh Muhammad and Ramzi bin al-Shibh, their operation was inside the United States. And they talked about this through email transactions, through phone calls. But that information was never shared by the NSA to the CIA. Even though the CIA had a bug inside the Ahmed al-Hada home, they didn't have a bug on the phone. And when they tried to get the other half of the transcript from the NSA, they were refused in 1997. And so the NSA never shared data with the CIA never shared data with the FBI or the State Department. And this is how conspiracies happen. Because if the CIA just simply shared the photographs that were given to them by Malaysian authorities of Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and Tawfiq Bin Attash, 9/11 would have never have happened. Because the FBI would have provided intelligence monitoring these 2 suspects, because after their stay in Dubai, they came to the United States and landed at LAX, Los Angeles International, on January 15th of 2000, where they were met by a Tunisian cab driver named Khalid Ben Amreen. And who told that cab driver to meet these 2 Saudi men at the airport? Fahad al-Tumari, who's an imam and a Saudi intelligence operative for the General Intelligence Directorate in Saudi Arabia. He's the head imam at the King Fahd Mosque in Los Angeles. And how did he know that there was these 2 Saudi men, because that's what he told Khalid Ben Amreen, he didn't tell them their names. How did he know that Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi were coming into the United States? Unless he was told by either foreign intelligence or domestic intelligence, whether it was from the NSA or the CIA, to begin monitoring operations inside the United States. Because remember, the CIA cannot monitor or legally conduct operations inside the United States. Legally. And so the Saudis began assisting Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi right away. Omar al-Bayoumi, who is a alleged Saudi operative, he met Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi in a restaurant, a halal restaurant, meat restaurant in Los Angeles. He just happened to be sitting there eating, and in walks in, out of the 1,100 restaurants in Los Angeles, he just happens to be in the same restaurant where Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi happened to walk in. And from there, he provides financial assistance. He also had another operative, Osama Basnan, who was getting financial transactions from Haifa bin Faisal, who's the wife of Bandar bin Sultan, the former U.S. Saudi ambassador. A number of small payments every 2-3 months, anywhere between $4,000 and $6,000 transactions over the next 16 months. Those transactions were going to a woman's name named Mawida Dawijak, who's the wife of Osama Basnan. That money went to Osama Basnan, and that money went to Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. Now, we have records of these transactions. The CIA knew about Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi landing inside the United States, never told the FBI, never told the State Department. And if they did, they could have stopped at least part of the 9/11 attacks, at least the attack on the Pentagon, because it is suspected that Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi were hijackers on board Flight 77. And they were. It was seen at Dulles on security camera video, as well as an alleged maybe 4 others as well. Could have been 6. Now, if the NSA could have simply shared their information with the FBI, 9/11 could have been prevented, according to Thomas Drake and William Binney. If the CIA could have shared the information with the FBI regarding the Malaysia summit meeting and Khalid al-Mihdhar's passport and his arrival inside the United States, they could have prevented not just part of the attacks at the Pentagon, but at least 9/11 in general. And so that's all I wanted to say on the subject of the Malaysia summit meeting and why it's important and why the intelligence apparatuses of the CIA and the NSA are highly complicit in their malfeasance. Now, if you want to say and make the argument, I probably could, regarding that they allowed the attacks to happen by not sharing this data, I could probably make a really good argument for it. It'd be hard to prove in a court of law, but certainly not impossible, because we did have Israeli and Saudi foreign intelligence monitoring the hijackers in the East Coast and West Coast. And we do know for a fact that the CIA and the NSA were monitoring the hijackers in Germany, in Afghanistan, in Spain, and in Malaysia.